He's talking about changing your mind, thinking, introspection. You've heard so much today. Let's take it internally and let's think if that could make some difference in my life and some difference in the way I think. So let's start by asking why you here. I don't mean why you're here in Ohr Sameach on Shivas B'Tammuz. Wonderful speakers, interesting, something to learn from. But why are we here in this world? We have a certain number of years, we don't know how many, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years, that we're placed in this world with a job to do. And I'm not talking about why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. That the philosophers talk, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world because he wanted to do good. Chok HaTov Lahetiv, if a person was left in the world alone, with everything in the world, except people, what would he be missing? He would have everything he wanted, gold, silver, food, cars, planes. But if there are no people, he would have no one to share it with, no one to give to. A person who's good wants to do good. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is HaTov HaMeitiv. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the ultimate of good. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to have somebody or something that he could create that he could do good for. Or good do too. And he realized, though, that there's the concept of nama dikisufa, shameful bread. Person doesn't like charity. You can't take charity. So he had to give us an opportunity to work for it. So he created this world where we had nisyonos, we have tests, life is a test, and we have to see how we're going to pass the test. And then when we do pass the test, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when we complete our life, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings us back and then can give us the ultimate good. But that's talking about why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us. What's your job? What do you have to do in this world? Well, one person would say, I have to learn Torah. I do. I have to learn HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah. I have to go HaKadosh Baruch Hu's meaning. Other people would say, I do mitzvahs. I have to do chesed. The things that I have to do in this world. So let's look at Rabbi Chaim Luzzati in the Nefesh HaChaim. He says the purpose of man is this world is litakein eskol habriyo. To improve, to fix the entire world. You think I'm going to sit and learn? I was Yotze. I learned my Torah. I've done what I have to do. I've done my chesed. Rabbi Chaim Luzzati says that's not enough. Rabbi Chaim Luzzati says that each one of us has the responsibility to change the world, to complete the world, to be an Oved Hashem, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I was having problems when I thought that I had to learn Torah. I had to do mitzvahs. Now you tell me that I have to change the whole world? I have to complete the whole... What do you want from me? But the answer is, you have to change the world. You have to correct and complete the world, but not by yourself. You have partners. We work together as a team. As a team, all of Klal Yisrael, the Kohen does something different than Levi, and the Levi does different than the Yisrael. And each one of us has to do our share. But there's an important distinction. We have to do our share. There's a difference between a poel, a worker, and a slave. The two of them can work together, the same company. The worker works hard all day, The slave works hard all day. At the end of the day, there's a big difference. The worker wants his paycheck at the end of the day. He's working for himself. The Eved, the slave, has no self. The slave is working for his master. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us and created us not to work for ourselves, not to learn Torah because I'm going to be a Talmud Chacham, because I have to be a Talmud Chacham. Not to learn Torah, or not to do mitzvahs because I want to come to Olam Haba, to the world to come, and I want to have this whole pack of mitzvahs. I have to learn Torah because Torah has to be learned. And there's a major difference. There's actually a shayla. A person is walking down the street, two people are walking down the street. And a poor man comes over to them and says, please, I need $100. One person looks in his pocket, sees he doesn't have any money. The other person has a big wad of bills. The person who doesn't have any money is the one who wants to give. The person who has the big wad of bills would rather not. So the one without the money says to the person who has the money, you know, I know this fellow. He really needs it. I think you should give him $100. And the one with the money thinks about it. You know, you said I should do it. Okay. I'll take $100 and I'll give it to the person. Who has done the greater mitzvah? Who gets the greater schar? Who gets the greater reward? If we're workers, then the one who gave the $100 did the job. The one who spoke about it did not. But if we're avodim, and our goal is that the job should be done, then the person who convinced the other person to give the money is really the one who got the job done. And it's Gemara in Baba Basra. Omer Rebbe Lezer, Godol HaMa'aseh Yoseh Me'oseh. And it's Paskin in Shulchan Aruch. In Shulchan Aruch it says the one who causes somebody else to give money gets greater schar than the person who gave it. Why should that be? Because our job is not to be workers to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I learned, I gained, I did. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world that I have to fix, I have to see that it's done. Rabbi Eliezer Levine, Sefarim Levracha, was the chief rabbi of Detroit for more than 50 years. His son, Rabbi Avram Chaim Levine, is a member of the Motzei Torah, the Shiva Tel Chicago. When Rabbi Levine was a young man, he learned in the Rabin Yeshiva by the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim came over to Rabbi Levine and his chavrusa as they were sitting and learning in the Beis Medrash. Chafetz Chaim himself came over to them and said to Rabbi Levine's chavrusa that there's a problem in a community and they need somebody to go to explain to them the right way to go, what to do, and I want you to go. And Rabbi Levine's chavrusa said, I'm in the middle of a difficult taisvus. I'm spending my time, I've spent the last day or two, I really want to stay here and be able to learn and to understand the taisvus. And Rabbi Levine said testimony, he said Eidos, that the Chafetz Chaim said to him, if you don't go, your taisvus is gar nit wert, it's worth nothing. Because we have to think not what we can do or how we can do it, not as workers, as poelim who are interested in themselves. We have to think, what does the Rebbeinu Shalom want and what's best for him? Now you think you lose the Tosfos, so you won't be able to learn the Tosfos. So let me tell you Personal story. I was a young man learning in Kollel, Yeshivas Ner Yisrael in Baltimore. And I was learning actually with the son-in-law of Rav Gifter, Rav Ephraim Eisenberg, who was Nifta Young. So Rosh Hashiva in Baltimore, became a big Rosh Hashiva. And Rav Ruderman, the Rosh Hashiva, came over to me and said to me that there's great difficulty in the office. Rabbi Newberg, Zichron Lebrocha, was having a difficult time, and they felt that I had the ability to help out in the office. So he wanted me to leave the kollel and to work in the office. I discussed it with my other Rabbi and so on, but then he said something to me. He said, you think that if you go into the office, that you're not going to be, listen, you're going to be a Talmud Chacham. You go in the office, you won't be a Talmud Chacham, but you'll work in the office, you'll do good things. There's a pasuk in Bereshit Vayera. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Hamachasa ani me Avram asher ani Yosef. Shall I hide from Avram? Shall I cover from Avram what I'm going to do? I'm going to destroy the city of Sodom. That's a hey hash'ela. It's a question mark. Should I cover it up? Should I tell Avram? Says the Chassam Sofer. Where do you find in the Torah that a Kadosh Baruch Hu questions whether I should give Nevuah? Should I give Yeshaya? Should I give Yecheskel Nevuah? Should I not give him Nevuah? Should I give Shmuel Hanavi Nevuah? Said they had Nevi'im, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Nevuah to the Nevi'im. So either you give the Nevuah to Avraham Avinu or you don't give the Nevuah to Avraham Avinu. What's this question? So the Chassam Sofer explains that everything in life you have to prepare for. Everything in life you have to do something to prepare it. In fact, to be a Navi, there was a yeshivas b'nei Nevi'im. I don't know if it was Ar Sameach, but it was a yeshiva where they learned to be a Navi. We find it in Tanakh. What's the curriculum in that yeshiva? What do you have to learn in order to be a Navi? And the principal thing that you do is this contemplation, meditation. You think, you separate your physical from the spiritual, and the body stays on this world as the description in the Tanakh, where in the Bnei Nevi'im they were lying on the ground, and then the Neshamas rise to the level, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu talks to them. Avram Avinu never fulfilled the requirements to be a Navi. He was too busy. He was taking care of the Bokar and the Yishmaelim and Achnasis Orchim and Achnasis Kalas. He was going around. Said HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Avram Avinu should not be able to ever to be a Navi. But Hamachasa ani me Avram asher ein Yosef. Should I hold back from Avram that which I'm going to do? Ki yedativ leman asher yitzav esbonav esbeiso achov. He's doing it for me. Why is he doing all these things? He wants to teach about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He wants to teach to the community. Says the Chassam Sofer that there's a haftocha, a promise, a guarantee that if you work for the Rabbanu Shalom, you don't lose any madrega that you personally would otherwise have. Last week, on Thursday, I went to Bnei Brak. I had an audience with Reb Chaim Kanevsky, Shlita, because I had a question, personal question. Rabbi Jacobs mentioned, at one point I was the head of Agudas Yisrael of America, and I was zeicha to help with Siyum HaShas. Siyum HaShas, the first time I was involved in 1975. 1975, we took Manhattan Center, we had 1,000 people, it was very exciting, we had 1,000 people gathered together for the Siyum HaShas of the Daf Yomi. In 1983, we took the Feld Forum, we had 5,000 people. In 1990, we took the main hall in Madison Square Garden. We had 20,000 people, and last time it continued to grow. Last time we took the giant stadium, MetLife Stadium, and had close to 100,000 people, plus people in Toronto and Los Angeles and Chicago, all over the world, over 120, 130,000 people. And it was a big Kiddush Hashem. And it was also a big Harbotas Torah, because a lot of people started learning the Daf. When people didn't have regular Siddurim, they started learning. And Baruch Hashem, I retired, moved to Eretz Yisrael, and now I'm sitting and learning, somewhat in Nar Sameach, somewhat out. Set goals for myself, and I'm sitting and learning, and I got a call that they're discussing, the new Siyam HaShas is coming up January 4th, 2020, not a lot of time, and there's consideration, they're asking me to help. Rabbi Jacob says I run back and forth to America, which I do, but I was afraid that I was going to have to give up some of the things that I committed to do. The things that I want to do. So before I continue the conversation with them in America, I felt I should ask Reb Chaim Kanevsky. So I went to Reb Chaim Kanevsky and I wrote out the Shaila. He looked at it carefully, and he looked up at me and said, Asu shteim, do them both. When I told it over to my son, Rabbi Eli Bloom in Los Angeles, who has a very successful Kiruv program there, and he said, what's the question? Of course, isn't this what Rav Ruderman told you? If you work for the tzibur, it doesn't mean you can't do other things. He was telling me that he was very, very busy and very successful. Kanai Naharat, many, many people are Shomer Torah mitzvahs, many families, people of B'nai Torah, is because of his work. And he felt he wasn't learning enough. So he started learning Mishnayos. And all of a sudden, he got a knowledge and understanding of Mishnayos that he never would have been able to have done in a normal procedure. He saw this was the Haftacha, this was the promise from the Chassam Sofer. Of course, you have to learn. If you don't learn, it doesn't work. But if you learn, you find that the ability to understand goes so much greater. So when you make a decision and when you think about what you're going to do with your life, you can work retail and say, I'm going to be misak in the world because I'm going to learn, I'm going to do chesed, I'm going to do mitzvahs. Or you can become somebody who works wholesale. You can see to it that others do. You can see to it that people get involved. And Rabbi Itzel Petersburg says something very interesting. Rabbi Itzel Petersburg says that when you do kiruv, when you work to be Mekadosh Shem Shamayim, it's different than when you do your own mitzvah. Because you don't do your own mitzvah, something happens, you can use up your reward. But if you make somebody else do a mitzvah, he says it cannot be taken away, and he explains that Chilul Hashem, the opposite of Kiddush Hashem, there is no punishment on this world that can be given for Chilul Hashem. The only thing is you have to die. Only death. Kiddush Hashem, he says, is the opposite. All of Olam Hazeh, all the benefits, all the pleasures of this world are not enough to give one star for being Mekadosh Shem Shamayim, and therefore you're guaranteed that it's going to be there. It's a story with somebody went to Reb Chaim Kanevsky, and he said he's very worried. So he said to him, what are you worried? Was it a health problem? He says, no, Baruch Hashem, health is fine. Children? Oh, Kanai Nahara, Avnachas Mitchell. Shidduchim? No, everybody's Shidduchim, all my children are married. He said, so what's your problem? Parnasim. Oh, maybe you don't have enough money. No, Baruch Hashem, help. Parnas is good. So what's your problem? My problem is things are so good that I'm afraid I'm going to go to Olam Haba and they're going to say, you used it all up. You got all the sky, there's nothing left. I'm worried. So Reb Chaim, in his own individual style, asked him, did you ever move from one apartment to another? So he says, yes. He says, you have nothing to worry about. But I'm going to present a different answer. If you see to it that somebody else became a Shomer Torah Mitzvahs, if you changed somebody else's life in that way, you have nothing to worry about. Your Olam Haba is guaranteed. I was a young man, I was in St. Louis, I was the executive director of the yeshiva, and that time was after the Vietnam War. There was still a draft in the United States, and somebody came to me, a wealthy individual supporter of the yeshiva, and he said he had a son, and his son is a little bit off the derech, he's not really interested in learning, but I'd like you to register him in the yeshiva so he doesn't have to go to the draft. And I said, I can't do that. Went back and forth, and I said, well, I'll tell you what. The college is 12 hours of learning, 12 hours of studies a week. It's considered full-time. He doesn't have to come to yeshiva full-time, but he has to be 12 hours a week. If you accept to come 12 hours a week and to learn, then we'll register him in the yeshiva. And we did, and he learned. And instead of going off the derech, he's still learning in Mir Yeshiva, 7 children, all married, K'nai Nahar, with Ne'im Klach and so on. If I would have given in and said he didn't have to come to the yeshiva, a whole family would have been lost. I'm guaranteed my Olam Haba. That itself, that one action, means that I have guaranteed my Olam Haba. But how can I do it? I don't know how to do it. I don't know what to do. I see Rabbi Gottlieb here and the way he speaks and so on, so beautiful, and he's able to convince people and talk, but me, how can I do that? That's why Or Lagola was created. Or Lagola was created to give young men the tools to be able to fulfill their role in this world. Not to live for oneself, not to be a poel, not to be a worker, but to work to be avodim v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu, slaves of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We do that, then we'll all be successful. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kiddush Shem Shemayim. Amen.